You once heard yourself on a recording and winced. That didn't sound like you. The microphone must have broken something. It didn't. The recording was faithful, and you're the one who's wrong. The voice you hear inside your head your entire life doesn't exist on the outside. Nobody has ever heard it. Not your parents, not your friends, not anyone who ever told you they liked the way you talk. All of them, this whole time, have been listening to somebody else. So why does your own voice sound like a stranger's to you? When you speak, the sound reaches your ears along two separate paths. The first is the obvious one, air. The wave leaves your mouth, travels around your head, and enters your ear like every other sound in the world. That's the same path every other person's voice takes to reach you. Nobody has a problem with how their friend sounds because only that one path reaches them. Simple, honest, the same for everyone. But there's a second path, one you never think about because you have no way of noticing it. Your vocal cords vibrate inside your throat. Those vibrations don't only travel into the air, they travel into you, into your jawbone, into the base of your skull, into the whole structure your brain sits on. And they reach the inner ear from within, through bone, bypassing the air entirely. This is called bone conduction, and it has one property that explains everything. Bone carries low frequencies far better than high ones. Deep tones pass through it freely. High tones get stuck along the way. This isn't some quirk of your head, it's ordinary material physics. Bass travels through the walls of a building when your neighbor plays music. You hear the thudding, you don't hear the words. Your skull does exactly that to your own voice, only from the inside. So when you speak, your brain receives two signals at once and glues them into one. To what everyone else hears, it adds an extra helping of low tones that simply aren't in the air. The result is that the voice inside your head is deeper, fuller, and warmer than it actually is. You can check this in a second, plug your ears with your fingers and say something. Suddenly you get even lower. You've cut off the air and you're hearing almost pure bone. Let go and some of that depth disappears. That's not an illusion. That's just the second path without the first. And now, the important part. A recording has no access to your skull. A microphone captures air and nothing else. So when you listen back, you are hearing yourself for the first time in your life exactly as the entire world has always heard you. That recording isn't a worse version of you. It's the only version that ever reached anyone. The one in your head is a private supplement nobody else has ever been admitted to. There's one more difference almost nobody mentions. Your voice is produced a few inches from your own ears. It should be deafening. Another person speaking from that distance would be unbearable. And yet you can talk and effortlessly hear the other person at the same time, because your own voice arrives to you noticeably turned down. A recording has no such dampening. You play it back, and for the first time, you get yourself at full volume from the outside like a stranger who walked into the room and started talking. It looks like we have our answer. The voice sounds foreign because it's missing the bass your skull adds. Simple acoustics, end of story, except that doesn't explain the strangest part, because if it were only about the sound, you'd get used to it. You'd listen back 10 times and it would stop bothering you, the way a new photo or a new haircut stops bothering you. And it doesn't stop. People flinch at their own recorded voice their entire lives. Voice actors, teachers, broadcasters, people who hear themselves professionally hundreds of times will still tell you they can't stand their own recordings. Familiarity doesn't cure it, and everything else in perception can be worn in. You got used to your own face in the mirror, you got used to your own signature. To this one sound, you don't. Something else is sitting here, and it's a good deal less comfortable than physics. In 2013, Susan Hughes and Marissa Harrison set out to settle it. They recorded the voices of 80 people, then gave them a set of various recordings to rate. The task sounded trivial. Listen and say how attractive each of these voices sounds. There was just one catch. Hidden in that set was a recording of the rater themselves. Nobody was told. Other tasks were placed between the recording and the rating, so that nobody would connect the dots and realize they were listening to themselves. And then came something nobody expected. People rated their own voice higher than the others. Higher than others had rated them. They didn't flinch. They didn't wince. They judged that voice more pleasant than the rest. The effect held for women and for men. It held regardless of whether the recording was counting a single vowel or an ordinary word. And it held up in later studies run by other teams. This wasn't a fluke of one group. The same voice, the same recording, the same missing helping of bass. The only difference was that they didn't know they were listening to themselves. That turns the whole thing over. You don't have a problem with how your voice sounds. You have a problem with knowing that it's you, Remove the recognition and the aversion disappears. It comes back the instant the thought arrives. That's me. And that's not a detail because it changes the entire diagnosis. For years, this aversion was blamed on acoustics, on missing bass, on a treacherous microphone. And it turns out that hiding a single piece of information from you makes the aversion vanish, while the sound stays exactly the same. Professionals solve this with one trick. Singers and voice actors in a studio wear headphones and hear themselves from the microphone rather than from their skull. They learn to sing and speak to the external version because that's the only one that counts for the listener. After years, they stop trusting what they hear on the inside. They choose the evidence over the impression. So what is it you actually can't stand when you listen back? When you speak, you're busy with content. You're building the sentence, making sure it comes out the way you want. You hear words, but a recording takes that job away from you. There's nothing left to construct, so for the first time, you hear everything that was running alongside the words. You hear yourself hesitate, hear yourself talk over someone, hear your voice tilt upward at the end of a sentence, as if asking permission. You hear impatience you never meant to show. You hear the accent you spent years getting rid of, and which comes back when you speak fast. You hear how old you actually are because a voice ages along with you, and it does so audibly. You even hear how you breathe between sentences. Your voice carries out into the world a great many things you never intended to give anyone. From sound alone, people draw conclusions about your age, where you're from, whether you're tired, whether you're frightened, whether you're talking to someone you care about. They do it in seconds and usually without noticing. And all of them have been receiving it every day, your entire life. Only you never heard it because you were on the inside, busy speaking. Psychologists name this phenomenon vocal confrontation, and they've been studying it since the 1960s. It was noticed then that people listening back to their own recordings react differently than to recordings of others. They tense up, change the subject, interrupt. It wasn't about the quality of the tape because other people's recordings from the same machine had no effect on them at all. It isn't about the sound. It's about the collision between who you feel you are and the evidence of how you come out. And that's why it stings more than a photograph. A photograph shows how you look. A recording reveals what you're like. Tone carries emotion, confidence, or the lack of it, your stance toward the person you're talking to. Everything a face might not give away. A photograph shows the surface. A voice comes out from underneath it. On top of that, a photograph is something you control. You pose, you choose the angle, you delete the bad ones. A voice records itself in passing while you're thinking about something else entirely. There's no posing for it. A recording catches you as you are when you aren't paying attention to yourself. And that is exactly why it's so unpleasant. It's the most honest record of you that exists. Everyone who ever loved you knew only that voice. The one from the recording, the one you can't stand. Your mother put you to sleep hearing it. Someone once fell in love with you hearing it. The friend who calls you on the worst day of their life is calling for that voice, and no other. To them, it isn't a thin, foreign version of you. It's simply you, the only one they have. And here's something worth turning around. In that recording, you hear hesitation. They hear you thinking it over because you care. You hear your voice tilt upward. They hear you asking rather than ordering. You hear exhaustion. They hear someone who picked up the phone despite being exhausted. The same recording, two completely different listenings, and yours is the only one looking for a flaw in it, and you will never hear it. Not that way, not the way they do. Your whole life you carry a private version of yourself in your head that nobody else can access, and your whole life you have no access to the one everybody else knows. One day a recording of you will be all that's left. Someone's old phone video, a voice message nobody deleted, and someone who misses you will play it and hear exactly you. Whole, real, just as they remember. And by then, there'll be nobody left to wince at it. So the next time you play back a recording of yourself and feel that something is off, hold on to one thing. You aren't listening to a broken version of yourself. You're listening to the only one the world ever got. And for someone, it was enough to fall in love with you.